Hello, person. You are here. We are here. You caught us at a unique moment in time. We are just hours ahead of the last ever Noisia Invites. We are just hours beyond the release of your third and final album, Closer. And we're going to do this very special interview. So how are you all feeling, first of all, before I just get in with the questions? What's it like feeling now hours just before your last ever Noisia Invites?
Pretty exciting, I guess.
I'm nervous. I have to play 2 sets. So yeah.
He's playing a Thai set as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
But yeah.
I'm still up in the air about it. I don't know what it feels like yet. That usually is very untransparent for me.
Yeah, it's a mixture of emotions.
I think it's also 10 years of Noisia Invites. I think Walter just said that in the van over. Like the first Noisia Invites was 2012.
In
wow.
Amsterdam as well.
Wow, amazing. I was going to ask that. That was going to be one of my questions, was when can you remember the first Noisia Invites? Take me back to there. So take me back to that then. Was it here in Melkweg?
I think it was,
Yeah.
During 5 days off.
Yeah, it was in the fall though, I think. Right? That's fall? I don't know.
It's spring.
It was spring, yes.
And then we started doing ADE too, but it was first 5 days off in spring.
We had wasn't that the one where we had the crazy eclectic lineup with Kraantje Papi and Don Diablo and stuff?
Yeah.
Was that the first one?
That was the first one.
Mm.
Wow.
And it was around the same time as our first Noisia Invites in Groningen. It might actually have been Groningen first.
No,
Yeah.
I think according to Walter it was Amsterdam first.
Okay, well,
Cool.
Wow,
Yeah.
10 years of Noisia Invites. Amazing. And about 10 hours since the album came out. So closer. I mean, I just want to get my head around the concept. What are we closer towards? Are you closer towards each other now throughout the process? Are we closer to death? Are you closer to the end boss? Closer to perfection? Closer to God?
It is also a closer.
Oh, well, that's the last song. It's called Closer, isn't it? I thought it was Closer, as in you're closer to, it's both.
it's both.
It's both.
Yeah.
That's why
But
it's a good title.
it also sounds a lot like the Dutch word klootzak, which is what we initially obviously wanted to call the album, which means asshole. Or ball bag, more specific.
Ball bag.
Brilliant, Klootzak.
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 Yeah.
Right, I've learned a new Dutch word.
Because
Amazing.
it's like bastard. You say, when someone's a bastard, you say klootzak. So, and this album was definitely a bastard.
Brilliant, brilliant. I mean, it's all come about incredibly quickly, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
well,
within
I mean,
the last few months.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the songs was originally slated for Outer Edges, so that's over 6 years old. So, you know, and some of these songs are actually, we released them straight after Outer Edges.
Yeah. So it was also when we decided that we were gonna stop doing Noisia at some point, we were still releasing music, and that's when we started to have like themed artwork, because it was always gonna be on some kind of a compilation or bundle later on, and then COVID happened and everything, and we started adding things that we still wanted to finish.
The whole series started as like, let's just put one tune at a time out and just figure out where we're going to take Noisia next. This was like straight after Outer Edges.
Right. So it was almost like a kind of fact-finding exercise then, where you wanted to go,
That's
where
how
the
it started.
destination.
Yeah.
Letting the music take you though, really, not
Yeah.
being contrived or forcing it in any way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, okay, cool.
So a
But
lot of
whenever
these-
we've spoken about it before, and obviously we speak every week, it's always been referred to as like a collection of singles, or, you know, a compilation of some kind. And even as recently as April the 1st, when you did what many people thought was a cruel joke, but was actually the start of the promo plan for the album. You know, it still, even then, was being referred to as, by one of you, at least when we were talking on Vision Radio, it was just as a compilation, really, when I don't think it is at all.
Well, we were very like self-conscious of releasing like 9 old songs, so we kind of wanted to manage expectations in a way. And then also, back then in April 1st, we really didn't know how much of the songs that we could still finish we were actually going to finish to our liking. We were like, no, this is good enough, this can go on.
Yeah, upholding that Noisia quality control
Yeah.
right until the last very minute.
So yeah, actually, when we did announce the actual album with the track list, I think it was just over half of the tracks were new, but some of them our skits. But then in the final days, we decided to actually switch the original Supersonic for the VIP version. So that I guess that counts as sort of a new track as well. So then the balance does go towards the new music.
Definitely. Well, we'll get to the last minute stresses because that seems to be a bit of a tradition for Noisia albums. But what I've really liked, and I've had Closer on pretty much repeat since I knew we were going to do this interview, and anyway, since I've had it, and I've been lucky to have it quite a few weeks before other fans of yours have. But what I really love is that it's breathed life into songs like Shibuya, Pet Store, Pleasure Model, and these type of tracks, because they're put within a different context. So it's added this whole other lease of life to them, really. And all of those tracks that are out suddenly sound different. And I think it's a combination of, there's a poignancy, because this is like, this is the final goodbye, really. But also just within the collection as a body of work, they sound different. They're repurposed in that way. So, and I've not seen any, being part of like Noisia fan groups and stuff online, I haven't seen anybody moaning like, oh, half of this is already released. There's an understanding and an appreciation of what all of these songs sound like in a body of work, really. I mean, did it surprise you when you put them together as an album? Did you feel that they had a new lease?
Well, I think one of the main, one of the reasons or sources of energy for us going this last sort of sprint to create this extra material was a listening session that we had when we were looking, which was I think late last year, when we were looking at what we had, when we were just going through, okay, so we have these songs that we want to do something. We had at that time we had one, maybe two new songs that we knew were going to go on there. We had a listening session, listened to all this material, and all of a sudden, like you said, those older tracks also kind of became part of this group, of this bubble, and there was all this other material that we were going through, and there was kind of like an energy like, oh, this could be something, I think it was like, because it was not just us, it was like our Walter, our manager, Jaap, label manager, and Fiep was also there, and like there was kind of a group, and we all it was kind of a buzz that we got from the listening session. I think that also helped us be able to sort of visualize or see this album as a possibility at all, because initially we were just like, well, we only have one, maybe two tracks that we really want to finish. Yeah, okay, it can be an album maybe, but it'll only have one or two, and then slowly it started growing,
Growing and growing to the point that this has now become my favourite Noisia album. And I think it holds together. Again, I think there's a poignancy because it is the third and final one. So there is that kind of feeling, even if you try and you can't take that emotion out of the listening experience, I think. And I think I speak on behalf of all Noisia fans there, really, that there is going to be that kind of emotional element to it. But as a body of work, I think it holds together better than the previous two, really. I mean, have you listened to it? Have you been able to? Is it still too close to finishing it literally like in the last few days for you to be able to sit back and go, yeah, that's an album? Have you still got your kind of technical, analytical heads on?
Not after it came out, but just before, sort of when we had to decide on the final track list, we had to obviously listen through the whole thing to see if it made sense. So that's the last time probably that I listened through the whole thing, and it will take a little while before I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did think it made sense.
I haven't listened to the whole thing again since that moment, I think, like start to finish. I mean to do it. I wanted to do it at home and stuff, but I haven't managed yet. And I also definitely feel like, especially with like these last minute editions, when there's a time constraint, you kind of just abandon the work, it's never really done. I mean, it's good enough, but you sort of just walk away from it. So that's always, don't you? I remember the same thing from Outer Edges. When it was done, we just kind of walked away from it, and I was kind of like, all right. And then maybe a year later or 6 months later, when I listened back, I was like, hang on, this is actually a good album. So
yeah, that's because then you don't feel like as if you can still change things, but you can't.
Yeah.
Well, we found out that we actually can.
yeah.
That's new to us.
Yeah, you can audio swap.
Yeah, and that was within the last few minutes. So for anybody watching,
it was
who wasn't,
after the last few minutes. It was already on Spotify, and then we changed the audio.
Yeah, and from what you were just saying about a certain track maybe not having the right kind of tail, we might have to do some more swapping soon.
But no, I remember like up until like a week before, 2 weeks before, I kept checking the end of one song and then the beginning of the next one. Because we figured out a track order, and then we knew, okay, this is the track order. Then there was a skit that's now called, what's it called again? Really new name? Told You. But it was a bit too long, but then you make it shorter, and then it's like, does it still work? Stuff like that I was doing a lot. So I kept checking the last 10 seconds of one song and then the new, and then I was like, yeah, but I know the rest of the song.
Yeah.
I did go through the album a lot just to make sure that everything kind of connects to each other.
Yeah. So with this last minute swap, or like even while it was out and things like that, I mean that happened with this album, and then the previous album on Outer Edges, there was a leak literally days, I think, before the release or something like that. That was hours, was it?
No.
No. It was weeks before release.
Yeah, it was a long time before.
But it was hours
before the debut live set.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because I was
not even
an
hours,
idiot
I
and
think
checked my phone just
yeah.
an hour before the set. I was on my phone and I should not have, and somebody sent me a message. And management already knew, but they were wise and didn't tell us. Like after the show, we'll tell them. And then I was an idiot and checked my phone just before the set, and I found out the thing had leaked, and I was like, Walter, do you know? And they're like, yeah, we know. Why didn't you tell us? Well, because you're stressed now and you have to...
That was like, that was extremely stressful, not necessarily just because of that, but the
whole thing.
That show, technically that was so stressful because we had to figure out ourselves whether the light and video guys were ready and receiving our signals, and we had to communicate with them through calling and texting as we were supposed to start, whether they had any signal at all. So we were dying of stress. Like I remember it being extremely fucking stressful, apart from the fact that our album just got leaked. So that was
wow.
The positive part is that after the show, and it went really well. So we were really like, yeah, and the album leaked, whatever. So it was a bit like, yeah, let's make the best of it. I think we decided, like on the evening, let's release it ASAP.
Yeah.
And we decided, okay, let's talk about it tomorrow. But it sounds like the best idea to just like pull the whole release forward.
Do you know what's crazy is I met you guys then the day after I came to your hotel. I was in Prague, but I came over to the Milovice Hotel.
Yeah.
And none of this. You kept like complete poker faces. You said that it was stressful. You said that the show was stressful, but the whole leak thing, I got back and then I started working on the Monday or the Tuesday after that. It rolled feeling pretty jaded, and you guys had pushed the album release forward. And it's like, wow. Like you were, you happily did an interview. It was quite an extensive conversation for an hour, sitting in a hotel garden. There must have been all of these other thoughts, like doing press with this random Welsh dude. Must have been the last thing on your mind, doing a Mixmag feature when you've had the album leaked and you had all of that stress.
I don't know, but
remember.
We also wanted to kind of give it that moment of like, it's like let's just give it that moment.
But did we not speak about that? I don't remember actively hiding.
I think we actually, what Thijs was just saying, I think we actually decided about that, releasing it earlier, on the same seats in the same garden when we were talking with Walter. Yeah. That was like either before or after our interview.
Probably just after gone or something.
Yeah, we spent quite a bit of time there. No, and this album wasn't as stressful as that. We didn't have that kind of stress. Originally, we actually wanted to write this next album after Outer Edges. We wanted to write something really in tandem with the show. With Outer Edges, we obviously made the album first and then the show after, and then here we wanted to maybe experiment with writing it into a show first. Right. New material.
So that's why
And
there's
then-
much more of a theme running through a lot of things and kind of similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then,
textures.
but in that process, we also kind of got lost, and we didn't focus on the show, and then it became these separate kind of singles that were part of like a trajectory.
And were they the cause then of you guys deciding actually this isn't quite working? We do need to put an end to Noisia as we know it.
Not the tracks
No.
per se, but just
The effect,
yeah.
I would say. Yeah, this is the result of that journey of trying to kind of figure out who we were after those like 15 years,
Yeah.
and then deciding like, hey, I think, you know, we think we've grown apart so much that it's just too much stress to keep trying to do stuff together that we're all like as passionate about as we used to be about the stuff that we did together.
Yeah.
And then we decided to quit. Then COVID gave us a couple extra years where we couldn't say farewell, and then we kind of, because the stress of trying to find that new direction together, it was very stressful because we didn't figure it out. Then deciding to quit was also very stressful.
Like a divorce.
Yeah, but then after like this, a relief came, and that's, I think, what closer means most of all, is that after we split, we still made this music together, and in the process of making that music, we actually felt a lot closer again.
I think that's beautiful. I
It is,
mean,
yeah.
are there any regrets there? I mean, was it almost close enough to the point where you could think, actually, with this whole farewell has been extended so much by world circumstances that it's now turned around to the point where, you know, you could, in theory, say, no, actually, you know, nobody would be surprised now if you turned around and said, actually, we're not splitting because the process of the album. Was there, you know, have there been any regrets?
I think the reason why we were able to do this in this way and be able to enjoy this process and feel this freedom together is because the decision and COVID created this bubble for us.
Yeah.
It set us completely free from the pressure of performing, from being like a name in drum and bass music and all that stuff, like completely kind of eased that off. And we also knew we were going to stop, so there's no future plans. So we were only focused on, okay, what music do we actually mean something to all three of us, and what do we want to work on?
And very
But
important.
you can't, like, if you decide to start again, that all goes out the window again, and you're
because
back
then
to being, you know, you're in the trenches again.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a future thing for us in a way. It was really like, no, let's put our Noisia caps back on. Don't think about where you want to be in 10 years with Noisia, because we're not going there. Let's just like put like all the stuff that you liked from back then, let's finish it like we would have back then, and not think about what happens in 10 years and where you want to be in 10 years, and project all of that onto this kind of vessel that we're trying to all three control.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're just
so
like,
the freedom of that then, that's really liberating then as a creative process.
But it was, in that sense, also very temporary. It's not something you can keep. So that's definitely what I felt during the process. It was really fun and really cool to just make music again together, but it felt like we were on some sort of borrowed time, you know?
Yeah.
Same goes for the shows, for me at least.
Yeah.
So
same.
I wasn't too excited about playing the farewell shows just after announcing that we were splitting, because we had been playing shows for a long time, uninterrupted and sort of more or less uninterrupted. And so yeah, it felt really weird playing the final shows, and we had a lot of shows scheduled because me and Thijs used to split the shows up most of the time. A lot of separate shows, like just me, just Thijs, and with the whole COVID gap, there was room for a lot more excitement about the final shows.
Yeah.
And so we tried, so both because, no, actually mostly because of the same reason, like it's not just starting back up and the next 5 or 10 years are going to be this, like playing shows again. This is it. So that's a very, very different feeling, and that's also why we're trying to do a lot of shows with the three of us or whoever is available to come.
Because with Outer Edges, we really wanted to try, and we were very conscious of the type of music that would be on there and where we would want to go, that we wanted to be more an audio-visual act, so everything had to fit kind of into this plan, and there's lots and lots of pressure because that's the material that you go and work with for the next 5 years or whatever. But for this album, we didn't have to worry about that at all. It's just like, is this cool? Do we all like it?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so and that's actually really great because it brings us back to what Noisia was kind of originally about, which was exactly that.
Yeah.
You know, when we wrote Split the Atom, there's a lot of material on there. Well, it's also on Outer Edges, but there's always been this material that's just kind of like self-indulgent and doesn't really care whether it's going to be performed or. So yeah, that was definitely a big part of it.
And also for the DJ sets, it's been very relieving to just be able to celebrate like our past and not like, especially for me, I was kind of pushing all kinds of like new things into Noisia that maybe didn't fully fit, but I was like just really trying, like, what if I put this in it? What if I put this in it? Like, can we go there? Can we go there?
Oh, there's been some famous sets where, you know, like,
Yeah.
I've certainly seen things from like an industry point of view when I've been working with promoters and stuff, and, you know, Noisia have come up on the headline and stuff, and people have said it's like a Noisia set or a Tice set. And I think there was like a Let It Roll Winter. I think there was a Glastonbury set where you went very esoteric, and I think Let It Roll Winter as well, where you've gone, no, this is my vision.
Yeah, that was the
on
very
Noisia.
first one, I think.
The winter,
Yeah.
Let It Roll
Yeah,
Winter.
I remember watching that stream. 'Cause I was playing another show and I was on the road and I was watching that stream. And it was
I thought
really,
it was brilliant.
it was really weird for me because Thijs hadn't told us what he was gonna do, and it was pretty mind blowing. Like I was very excited when I saw it. I was like, oh man, this is very different. I didn't expect this, and then. I didn't think it was super Noisia, but it was impressive, and yeah, it was also very confusing.
Yeah, but it, like what we found out now, I think, or from my perspective anyway, with the DJ sets, the most fun we've had recently, or I've had, is if there's a show actually in kind of not a major city, not a major industry hub, but for example, we had a weekend of Denmark, Copenhagen and Stockholm, like relatively smaller clubs. So there we don't, like, we know some people there. One night there was a bunch of friends there as well, but it's mostly just us in a city that, you know, with a crowd that came there for us, where there's no other drum and bass lineup or whatever. It's just us. And then that feeling on stage of like, you know, being able to do whatever you want, and also I don't DJ, but like getting that feeling from them and be able to react and really be there as opposed to just delivering what you think you might have promised, or, you know, like that was so much fun as well. That and that's really crazy about this farewell tour for me personally, because I had so much fun those nights, and then the nights like London or like Rampage are so intense in many other ways.
And there was a whole party going on behind the decks, wasn't there, at Printworks? And that was, you had most of London's drum and bass community, and just bass community in general. Like even Rob, who
Rob
Playford. I want to say Rob Halford, but there was no heavy metal legend. Yeah, you know, you had everybody came out for that. But yeah, I'd imagine like those ones where it is just the three of you. That's as close as you can get to a time machine and going back 20 years or 15 years ago, really, almost like, you know, to the end when you were outsiders.
We started DJing on Martijn's bedroom, I think, in Rob's house, because Martijn had bought vinyl.
Yeah, the very first time was in your bedroom at your parents' place with the
Yes, and we actually went on a train to The Hague to buy the decks.
But that. Oh, the Vestax one or the Technics one?
No, the Vestax ones. Yeah.
All three of you went on the train together?
No, the two of us, and it was, I don't even, it was really weird getting on a bunch of trains and then buying decks from someone and getting back on the train, and then
brilliant.
stream to one or two people on AIM.
That
That's
was that was like
very
super
first night.
wild then, like holy shit.
We had 4 records or something, just mixed them into each other all the time.
It was really funny.
Yeah.
Wow, what a historic moment that turned out to be.
No, that was because we were making music, and then we started to get to know some people on AIM that that's they started sending us records or something. I don't know why we had vinyl in the first place. We had our first show. You had one show in Groningen, but we had our first real Noisia international show in Hungary in January 2004, and that was really that was our first show. We were just booked because we made music, and we didn't
By then,
actually.
Silicon was already out.
Yeah, that came out in.
So
It was a drum and bass night, no?
Yeah, but but I wasn't aware before that people DJs would get booked because of the records they made. I just thought you had to be you were either a DJ or a producer.
Because that was the kind of standard way before, really.
Yes.
yeah.
But then we were invited to come and play there, which is really still really cool.
I wonder if they recorded that set.
Yeah.
I hope it's not recorded. I'm pretty
How
sure
about
we're
early
clanging
sets,
all over the
like
place.
First sets in London and stuff, I think, were at Renegade Hardware, weren't they, at the end?
Yes.
First UK show
probably.
was in Bristol at the Black Swan.
Brilliant.
For
What a legendary place to do your first UK gig.
What's his name? Riz?
Oh, Rit.
Yeah, Ritesh. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, was that
he's
the
in
first?
Mexico now. Yeah,
Is that the first show, UK show?
yeah, it's the first time.
But that was quite a bit, not that much later, but
No, that would have
little
been
bit later.
2005 or 2006.
yeah, because
It's
it was
really early.
at that time it was still really hard to break the UK as
Yeah.
a European or American.
Or
DJ.
anybody
Any-
from outside of the
yes.
UK,
Yeah.
really.
Exactly.
I
And
think
we
I
did,
think
we
now
did go
it's a
to
lot.
Hardware a lot because we were kind of like with Chris,
Motion, Chris,
Motion or Notion, Motion.
Motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tori, they were running this agency, but they were
Terry.
Yes. They were closely linked to Hardware, so we really started there. And then later, really kind of like we're closely linked to Fabric, where I felt like we had a residency at Fabric because I was there every other month, like literally every
We
other
did
month.
sort of have an unofficial.
Yeah,
residency.
there was never an official residency, but we did the Fabric Live City, and then we were there like literally every other month. I would be in Malmaison.
But yeah, the now I think it's a lot easier to get bookings in the UK as a European DJ.
Yeah.
Oh, hugely.
No, TV paved the way for us.
Yeah, I was
there.
going to say
Yeah.
TV.
But he
TV and
moved there,
Marky.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but
he
he-
had to put on this whole accent and everything. I had
Yeah.
to learn, like, sound like he was British.
Yeah.
You know, or he felt like he had to anyway.
Yeah.
He was a couple of years
Probably
well ahead
in,
of us.
in those days he really had
Yeah.
to.
But I remember the Blacks and Empire guys telling me that they had their first UK show, and that was when we thought they were already huge.
Yeah.
Let's just big those up, actually, because I remember a story that I like. That they are hugely responsible in the way that you run your business, aren't
Yeah.
they?
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a lot down to also Marco from Triple Vision, if
Yep.
I know my Dutch drum and bass
Yeah.
history. But that kind of independence and going, right, okay, well, we can't get into the UK. It's not as easy to get to where drum and bass was formed, but we can do our own thing. We can set up our
That
own
wasn't it.
label.
No, we were really on a thing of like trying to get signed to RAM, Hardware, etc. Moving Shadow.
Not signed though.
Just
So
get
we
Yeah,
wanted
yeah,
all
yeah,
the
no,
labels.
Yeah, but
Yes.
we really liked that, and it wasn't problematic. But the thing is, like, we started hearing Blacks and Empire and Marco out, and they were like, start your own label. You want to own your own masters, etc., etc., etc. And at some point, we're like, okay, we've done all these labels. Time to, and we have two great tracks. We have Concussion and The Tide.
But I think,
Let's
I mean,
do it.
in my head, we were always kind of wanted to do it independently and do it ourselves. But like,
No,
maybe
I think
they
we
showed us the way how to do it. But
Yeah.
when we first started releasing on these labels, we never wanted to sign anywhere exclusively.
Yeah.
So,
No,
which
no.
is kind of with the end goal of, you know.
Now we did want to release on all the labels that we looked up to, because we wanted to release on Hardware, on RAM, on Virus, on
Subtitles.
subtitles. for
Virus only came later after
Yeah.
we started, but
Yeah,
we
but
always felt like, wow,
Yeah,
we need
so we
to
did
release
want to release on the big labels, metalheads, but then, I guess Blacks and Empire, they were just inspirational because they were also a Dutch trio
Yeah.
dudes. They were just a few
Yeah.
years older and already doing the stuff that we didn't think. I mean, there was this. Were they playing that one night that I couldn't go to because I was underage?
No,
They
no,
were-
that
were they not playing?
that was
Was that cause for concern?
Cause
Yeah,
for
that's
concern,
Cause for Concern.
Matrix, Rhyme Time, Ed Russian Optical.
Yeah.
Was that the one where, like, really, really early days, and you went with a recorder to record something?
Yeah, my MIDI disc.
Yeah.
And I put the
Headphones.
headphones into the microphone and I recorded some songs, and then later I uploaded these. And like, what's this? And I found out they're just there and you
All
can
Cause for
buy
Concern,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, they were all Cause for Concern. Synergy was one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were early nights where they were already on the lineup and we were just still visitors.
Yeah.
And then also, like in the drum and bass climate at the time, especially in Holland, it seemed to be that the general sound that people were going for wasn't really the darker technoid neurofunk, which was named that later or whatever. Like was more a little bit more soulful, liquid or eclectic, and
Lots of jump up.
jump up
Dillinger.
and jungle and stuff. There's things that at the time we weren't really into. And Black Sun Empire was this really dark, like techno influenced drum and bass that we also thought was really cool. So that also immediately gave us like a bond.
Yeah.
And then later that sound became much, much bigger. But at the time, like we even sent
It
like
was almost post the dark sound in the UK, because you had the tech step
Yeah.
sound and the
Yeah.
virus movement, and then things people were like, hang on, this has got a little bit too technical, and there was like, there was a renaissance of liquid and things like that
Yeah.
at the very early 2000s.
Yeah, like high contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we got Marcus Intellects, like he was like one of the most, I guess he'd been going for a long while, but like that's the sort of stuff that at the time I couldn't really see the value of it, but now I understand it much, much better. But we were really upstarts, we wanted to do something in a certain direction, and nobody, like we didn't understand why people weren't just playing like Ed Russian Optical tracks all the time.
Yeah.
Bad Company.
In Bad Company,
Company,
yeah.
yeah.
So we also, I remember sending, like we had a Vanishing Point. We sent that to Rhyme Time for 1210. And obviously we didn't have that much hype, but he turned it down, I think, because he said he wanted to sell X amount of units and that sound wouldn't do that.
I don't remember that.
No, I also don't remember that.
But just to go back to the influence thing for a little bit, I did speak to, I did a lot of the early business stuff before Walter stepped in. And I remember speaking to Black Sun Empire for advice, like just how they did stuff, how they organized their.
And you were also on the phone with Marco a lot.
And that I was going there. Marco and all the guys at Triple, but mostly Marco would just be someone I used to call, just for inspiration and to just chat for an hour about like just making plans. What can we do? Where should we take things in general? And he would just take all the time to just lay out different scenarios. And in terms of musical direction even, or like side projects, or releasing on different labels, or Triple Vision labels, or our own label, or starting a new label even for certain projects. Doing white label releases, just all kinds of.
And he was obviously throwing a lot of parties as well.
Yes.
So that was all, a bit like for us, very key figure to get it also into the more, I guess, Amsterdam, Rotterdam with Prospect,
Den Haag,
like that kind of scene.
And this is the foundations of the Dutch drum and bass scene, which I'd say is, one of the top kind of 3 or 4 territories in the UK, in the world.
Well,
in the UK.
But the foundations also,
but the
foundations
way earlier.
go back.
Yeah, they go like there's a lot of people that.
Yeah, the foundations of our sound is that.
Yeah.
But it's when we started DJing in our own country, most of it was in Rotterdam, I think, and Utrecht. But mostly Rotterdam had the major league nights, and there were some in Amsterdam. But I don't think I remember a lot of people saying like there's not really a scene in Amsterdam. DJs from Amsterdam would just come to Rotterdam.
If we're going back to like early influences and places, we should also mention Hemmes, There's a record store in Groningen that we would go to after we'd found out about drum and bass through renting CDs at the local library. That's where we first heard drum and bass, and we rented these CDs, and then we found out that they're also in record stores, that it's dance music, that there's vinyl of it, all this stuff. And Hemmers was this record store.
Which CDs were they? I'm imagining like Timeless would have been one, maybe.
No, it was compilations.
Molten Beats.
Armageddon, right?
Molten Beats, Armageddon, Bad Company albums. I think maybe up to
Inside the Machine. Inside the Machine was one from the library.
Maybe even Digital Nation.
No, that wasn't out yet.
Wormhole. From the library. So
From the library.
we eventually ended up in this record store, this indie record store, really cool place where DJs would come and they had all kinds of genres, all kinds of music, CDs and vinyl. And there was one guy who was, Robert, who was kind of specialized in electronic music. And we also didn't really know the landscape very well. So we'd often be there with a record or something, be like, do you have more like this? Is there anything, or what's that? Does this sound like that? Or whatever. And he would say, well, there's this track and there's that track. I remember he put us onto Tipper's remix of Who's Jack the Ripper, the Groove Rider, for example, you know, which is a massive track, and like, so
the first records we sold, I think, might have been CDs that we sold.
Yeah,
there.
we just
burned ourselves,
10 copies,
printed things, and put it, and they wanted to sell them.
Yeah,
it was
they were like on the
future.
counter, where you would pay, obviously in, I think still in guilders first, and then it would still be in guilders before the euro. You would pay there, and then there was like 10 CDs that we printed, and people actually bought them. We were like, what?
Wow. Amazing. Have you got any of those?
We have them.
We have them. Yeah.
And then also like influences from that, like those super early days, I would have to mention Voya and Pras and Josje and Silverfunk.
Yeah.
Like those that was like a bit of a scene that we were like, oh wait, there's a scene here?
Yeah.
This is party music? Because we were just like, you know, on our headphones.
Josje, I was actually with Josje last night, and she was part of the like free party scene and kind of pirate radio and things like that.
Yeah, she had a radio show as well.
Yeah, because she was a few years kind of older than you guys. Yeah. Wow. So I didn't know, going back to what you said earlier, that you were doing the kind of managerial side, if you like, really, before Walter came along. And I mean, you know, Walter's been referred to a few times in the interview, and everybody kind of, you know, any you know, card carrying Noisia fan is going to know his name and stuff. But he is the fourth member, really, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know, he is just as much Noisia as you.
He's the fifth Beatle.
Let's pick up Mr. Flapper.
Yeah, well, and you should also know that we went to high school together, so we were very close friends. And he would hang out at these student houses that we were renting. He would come hang out, and I remember Martijn, having done so much of the management stuff, wanting to offload it a little bit to Walter, and me having zero idea about what that meant, but being very positive because it meant that Walter would be around more. Because he was just one of my best friends and such a fun guy to have around. We had so much fun. So like, yeah, of course, he'll be the manager. That's cool. Like that's literally how my rationale went. I was just like, we'll have him around more. That's cool. And so, because he was studying history, you know, he wasn't becoming a music manager at all. No. So, and
there's 4 guys who quit their education. I did philosophy, Nick did art school, Martijn did conservator. We were all doing all right, and Walter did history. We were all doing it right, and we were like, well, we have a shot at this music stuff. Let's give it a go.
Well, we were sort of doing it parallel to each other, and then giving up on the study at the point where it was really not doable anymore to do both at the same time.
Yeah. And so we were in a 4-bedroom student unit with a shared kitchen and bathroom and toilet. And so my girlfriend at the time's friend was renting one of the spaces, and 2 had opened up, and me and Thijs were able to rent that one. Then a 3rd opened up, Martijn was able to rent that one. So then for a while it was us 3 with this girl who had no interest in drum and bass.
Hoi Liana.
She enabled us to sort of cohabit and become, that was really a pressure cooker time where we were only making music.
And every night she would knock on the doors like, can you turn it down?
Yeah, or not even guys be like, your voice is so loud, can you know.
So and we would go all night, like
until 5, 6, 7. Then wake up at like 4 p.m. and then go get pizza because the the dinner shift had already opened at the pizza place.
Yeah, so at some point we were able to, or she also left, and then Walter rented that space, but he didn't live there, he lived elsewhere, and we turned that into a studio, because we had 3 studios all in our little rooms, and then we had like our first dedicated studio space in there, and then we lived there for a while longer, like
And Amon, the first time he came over, it was Amon Tobin was in that room. And we were like, oh my God, Amon Tobin, this famous, like super rich, famous rock star guy is coming, and then he's just sleeping on a stretcher.
We also, do you remember that we put up all the signs
Yeah,
in French? But excusez, le sink non working. But it turned out
we
that
bought him a bathrobe and like slippers. he never fails to mention that.
Oh, really?
but the French stuff, because we thought, oh, he's Canadian, he must speak French.
Yeah, because he lived in Montreal. Yeah.
So in one of
he's not Canadian.
In one of the videos on our Patreon about the tide, there's a lot of photos from that time, and so I'm really happy we still have those. Like the kitchen was such a awful mess, and like it was like the amount of like collective focus on one thing that you can get when you live like that basically is really crazy. It's like you don't realize that later in your life that's much harder to have.
Impossible. There's commitments galore and things like that.
I was always on AIM back then. Always. First thing I would do in the morning, check AIM. I would stay up so late talking to people in America because of the time difference.
Can you remember any really significant kind of links or connections or progress you made? Because AIM was like, that was the boiler room.
Yeah, Mayhem.
Drum and bass, really, wasn't it?
Mayhem, TB,
TV.
DOA, SLR, the 2 forums.
Yeah.
Cyanide also a bit, like, kind of helped us a bit,
And at some
a
point,
lot.
I guess Clayton Renegade Hardware.
Yeah. But we didn't really talk to him a lot.
Online, no.
Like with Mayhem,
Yeah.
talked so.
Yeah,
Well,
that was also
he
pretty
was
crazy.
significant in you breaking the UK, though, really, wasn't he? And the whole kind of
Who was?
the phenomenon that was Renegade Hardware, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this was before that we were already signed to an American drum and bass label, which is
And a
about-
Scottish one.
and a Scottish one, like Shadow Law and Nerve Recordings, which is kind of crazy because American drum and bass was obviously also in a very different place.
Yeah.
Like and Mayhem was one of the first to. Actually,
And
probably-
Prolex and Milo, we talked to them loads in the early days.
Yeah, but I think Mayhem was one of the
And
very
Face.
first kind of.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, keep you interrupting, but Face was our buddy growing up, and later Blacks and Empire as well, and the Upbeats came as well. But Face was really like the 2 of us, well, 4 of us, 5 of us, because he was also in a partnership back then with Nico. We really like kind of climbed the ropes together, like us
As
and
like
Face.
international misfits, kind of.
But Mayhem was the kind of first champion of what we
Yeah.
did, right? Like the first
Mayhem.
guy who would literally say, "You guys have something special.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
want to sign this. I
He
think this is."
DM'd us on DOA probably.
Yeah. So he deserves a shout out for that. for
Absolutely.
Cool. I mean, let's shout out, because it's great, coming back to Closer, is the fact that you've got so many of your friends as well. It's the 3rd and final album, it's a goodbye, there's all of the stuff that we've covered, but it's also the fact that you've got so many of, your kindred spirits, so people who've been part of your journey and stuff like that.
A lot of them are here tonight too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. What, it's sunny here tonight?
No.
No.
Not that we know.
Not that we know.
Oh, it would not be beyond him to just have booked a
just
flight
turn up.
and not
Yeah.
tell us and turn up.
But that's, I mean, one of the tracks, it's Horizon, isn't it? Kind of came about through, he just kind of surprised you with a collaboration, wasn't it, I think?
Well,
Quite last minute.
Yeah, he actually had this track since we'd been working on, pretty much right after we wrapped up Supersonic. He's like, I have this other track I want to do with you guys for your final album. We should work on this track together. And he played it to us, and it was kind of this melodic drum and bass thing. And he kept on championing that song and saying like, we should work on this.
I don't think I had heard it at that point, but
What was the name of it?
Quantum.
Quantum. Yeah.
And so he'd sent it a few times, and then after a while we'd all heard it, but none of us really switched on. We thought it was a cool song, but it wasn't like we should work on this. and then he came over a couple of weeks ago, actually, and kind of was pushing it again, and he was like playing with it on his laptop, actually not in our studio, but in the front room, and accidentally all three of us were in that room.
And he muted the snare. Oh, sorry.
and he's sitting on his laptop, and he's like, "Should I make you guys some stems?" And kind of like, "Okay, no." And then he was going through his stems, and he was muting the drums, and then he unmuted them again. I was like, "No, wait, mute the snare." And so he muted the snare and then played the track back. And I was like, yes, that's it. Now I get it. And so this whole idea, at least for me, really clicked, and I feel like it happened for them as well.
So,
and also
so to fill it in, the snare was really continuous. It was really like boom, normal drum and bass drums.
Which was also quite cool, but we didn't know where to take it.
And then it became this kind of more like ambient drum and bass-y, but like emotional music, rather than a drum and bass track that had just conflicting energies in our musical minds.
I think it became thematically much more interesting because it has a quite euphoric and hopeful build-up, and then originally it would just drop, but now it opens up to this kind of like this horizon. So that I thought was like, this is great for the album. This makes sense because it's like a open water, you know, like suddenly. And I love that whole contrast and the sort of like tropes that are in the build-up that are very typically Skrillex and euphoric American EDM ravey, and then suddenly it opens up to this kind of openness, but it's positive, and it's not like some dark hole, you know, like we would do. It's like, and so in a way, I think there's, for me, or I like to project some of Sonny's farewell to Noisia in that song, like him kind of saying goodbye to us, because he literally said that too, that there's a vocal in there on the second drop that says, I saw something in you that you didn't see. Yeah. And that's how he kind of feels about Noisia, he says. So
he thinks we should have never quit.
Oh, wow.
He thinks a lot of things.
He cares so much. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's also a part of Closer is like we're getting, I don't know, as on personal level, like closer and closer to Sonny. That's really nice. Yeah. I do have one more anecdote. I have to tell this anecdote.
Do it.
There's a bass line. No, not a bass line. It's a electric, like a bass guitar in there. It's quite muffled and in the background, but actually the theme that the song starts with is a ta da ta ta, is what I played on this bass guitar, and then Sonny put it in the piano, a couple of octaves higher. I broke my arm the day after Rampage, waiting for everybody to get into the van. I was fucking around on a fence, and the fence broke, and I fell forward, and I was like, "Oh, that hurts! Ha 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 ha! Oh my god, it was so stupid. Why did I fucking start balancing on the fence?" And then 3 weeks later, I had a studio session. I went to Berlin. I did all these things, and then I had to take. It was still so painful that I had to get it X-rayed.
I called it straight away. When we were in the van. I was like, "That's probably broken."
Yeah. Anyway, so this bass guitar on Horizon is me with a broken arm, and this was really painful. But I was like, no, I got this. I got this. So forever, when I hear that record, I will think of this whole period, because there's actual physical like pain connected to it.
Brilliant.
To the memory.
Brilliant. There must be some other really nice personal anecdotes there in all of the collaborations, really. But what other ones kind of spring to mind, really, in that kind of closeness, really, with everybody who's been involved in this final?
It's hard to relate it to a song.
Just,
like,
I mean,
Imanu, I would say, like, we've been championing his music since he was 17 on Noisia Radio and Vision Radio, respectively, and it's just, it was very right that we collaborated on it. And the same for Halogenics. Like, I've made so much music with Lawrence. Most of it was actually released as Ivy Lab stuff back when he was still with Ivy Lab. So it was also more than right that, you know, there would be a Noisia and Halogenics collab to kind of solidify that friendship and relationship.
But these, this one and also the Imanu collab, they actually kind of came about from that listening session I talked about, because we found these other tracks that we'd never finished. You play them again, everybody gets excited, like, oh, we should really finish it. And then we were like, but wait, why don't we send this to send that to, and send that to,
Yeah.
and then have them, because there would be tracks that we'd been stuck with and couldn't finish, so we needed fresh energy. So the one with Jonathan, for example, is like a neuro thing from way back that we never managed to finish. And so we needed something completely different to just go in and, you know, give it a new spin. So that was a very different, like not really like I don't think we were even in the same room for most. We weren't in the same room for most.
He did come over.
Yeah, he came over for like some
Yeah.
of it, but like most of it was like kind of separate, and it was also kind of practical because we had all these, like he was working with an old version, we didn't have proper stems, and it was, you know, like, so there's no, like there might be less soulful stories, like I wanted to play this even though my arm was broken there, but I think they all have like their own sort of story why conceptually they're interesting, which in this case I think is like, I don't want to say Imanu is a new face of neuro stuff, because he isn't, but he is part of a wave that is redefining a lot of that sound as well.
Completely
So-
redefining electronic music and drum and bass's relationship with electronic music and people's perception of it, really, I think.
And the track we gave him was actually a very conservative kind of retro neuro track that we had, which, because it was so conservative in a way, and we didn't think it was exciting enough anymore. So that's why those energies we wanted to sort of juxtapose, because it would create hopefully something cool. So that you can kind of hear that the first drop is more the original idea and the second drop is more what Imanu does.
But
although
didn't
the
he-
first drop was so shitty that I reworked it completely to make it kind of cool. So it's not that drastic a paradigm shift inside the track, but it's meant, that's why it's called shift. It's meant to accentuate kind of this change in sound.
And it was pitched down.
And it was
First
pitch
drop.
shifted too. Yeah.
Didn't he initially say like, hey, give me that song?
No, he had been, well, yes and no. Because he had been just asking for the song to play it.
As a dub.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then when we were talking about, when we were quitting, and or maybe even talking about not finishing it ever, he was like, "Can you send me the stems?"
Yeah.
And then
we didn't do it.
go on.
And then we didn't
suddenly
do
you
it.
did after we decided we should give it a go.
and
it was-
then we had that listening session, and then we were like, so Jonathan asked for these stems, so why don't we send it to him? And then on the back of that,
Yeah, the same with halogenics.
yeah, that's when we were like, so maybe we can also send something else that we are excited about, that we don't feel
And
like finishing or we're stuck with, to Lawrence and see what he can do with it. Yeah.
And it's also, that session is also when we heard the Come on Crooked thing back, which is a completely different version that we were agreed that we couldn't finish that version. But
Right.
Martijn heard something, he was like, no, wait, let me go in. And we're like, yes.
Yeah, so that one
Yes.
did start with
it did start
with
with
them
them.
in the studio, actually. So
I
that
remember
was
the photos. The
yeah, that was
photos
a
are quite
different.
iconic of all of you together, and knowing how they work and knowing how detail obsessed they are, and how detail obsessed you guys are. I wondered, even when I saw that photo, it's like, wow, that's either going to make the most amazing music, or you're not going to make anything at all, because nobody can agree on
Well,
anything at all.
I told you in the last in the Vision Radio episode, I explained a little bit what happened during that first session, which was basically lots of energy flying around the room and me completely sandbagging the session because I wasn't feeling it, and I wasn't.
You were no-daving.
It was too, it was like I wasn't really into it, and I wasn't able to just go with it. I was just like, and it was happening in my studio, so you know, I was.
my studio,
But so despite my sandbagging it still managed to find at the very end in very different shape because of Martijn come to fruition, which is very great.
But we did have a really cool session with them outside of the studio with the snow and the skateboarding.
Oh yeah,
it was just
fun.
we have a skate park that I hadn't been to, I think, even.
I haven't been to since either.
No, but but that was sort of a special moment for me, because I used to skateboard a lot, and then
That's how we first met,
Yeah.
actually. It was graffiti but really skateboarding.
but then but then
And that was before I knew Nick and stuff. This is like, I think I met you when I was 17, Martijn when I was 15.
And we went to a show together for that
And he's
that
wearing
group.
the band shirt.
Yeah, that shirt.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I might have bought that at that show, or at least
Yeah.
this is as old as that
Yeah.
show.
The Oslo Posse and the Heideroosjes in No Support.
Brilliant.
I went
in
stage
the
diving.
90s, yeah. So, but so yeah, I hadn't been skateboarding for a long time, and
But
then
you guys
they
weren't
came out.
friends back then, though. You knew
Not
each-
really.
I
no,
was
we knew
I
each
was
other.
hanging with his little brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. His little brother is slightly older than I am. A few days.
Yeah, we're like a year and a half apart.
Yeah.
So it's not that much.
So how about, because we are going through all of the collaborations now on the album, I mean, Face, we've already mentioned that how special Flow has been to the whole journey and how you've kind of grown together. And I've made a joke out of it on various episodes whenever we played a collaboration of yours on Pigeon Radio. And I've tried to list every single one that you've done. And it's easy in the double figures of how many collaborations you've done.
Yeah.
So how did this particular one come about?
Well,
It's a modular sample. So it's from the Swedgeman resonator, and I just gave it this rhythm. When you pitch it all the way down, which Nick does in the end, you hear that it actually goes da 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 da, but you don't hear that in the actual song. It's a cool detail. I always find that really cool when you hear it slow down. It's like it's actually another rhythm than what you're perceiving the whole time.
I think with Face, the thing that I loved so much and still do, and what was very important for Noisia, is that he had this belief in the fact that electronic music and dance music could like blow your mind in a completely different way. Like could be quite cerebral while still, being groovy or whatever, but just like exploring this crazy abstract terrain with drum and bass.
Yeah.
We were always like, we loved that sort of subliminal and strange stuff that nobody was really doing, and we loved it. He loved it maybe even more. And so we really accelerated each other in making really out there songs with very like strangely hard to explain but captivating atmospheres. Like I still think he does that better than anybody. And so that was like so much fuel we had for that over all those years of working together, because like we obviously did more collabs with him probably than with the Upbeats, but we also started working with him way earlier than with the Upbeats. So that like the amount of tracks that I think that we did together that are like unique and have this weird, like also very visual world connected to it is.
I want to hear Outsourced and Surface Tension again. Those were the first two. That's actually the weekend that we went to Hungary.
Yeah.
You made those songs in
For the
Cologne?
first show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we drove to Cologne.
So there was a
Germany.
cheap flight.
Yeah, because it was a cheaper flight. and we dropped Nick off at Florian's place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
We spent the night at
Enfects and Displays.
yeah.
house.
And Florian was actually already quite at least confident, but also an experienced DJ.
Yeah.
Like he was doing a lot of.
He'd been DJing for years.
For years, yeah.
Yeah.
So he like there is a lot we learned
DJ
from him as well, but also
energized.
just his attitude of being like no compromise in being who you want to be and believing in your art and believing in like weirdness
Yeah.
and like really embracing it because
Yeah.
drum and bass is pretty fucking conservative at times, especially back then.
Yeah.
And he was completely didn't
No,
give a shit about
He
that.
loved punk and he loved David Lynch, and that wasn't really like the drum and bass aesthetic. Outside of that is really like more like RoboCop stuff or Alien.
Yeah.
But he loved like this weird psychedelic krautrock, like 70s krautrock
Mr.
music.
Wazzo.
He,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like completely different aesthetic that we really like connected to as being
And he still flies that flag now. I
Yeah.
think he's still
Yeah.
a bastion for that, thinking outside the box, defying arrangements and not doing the typical kind of built for DJ sets
Yeah.
formula which drum and bass has relied upon and been built around and plays with, like kind of subverts quite often, but it's still it's based around that structure, isn't it?
And Deep Down is actually an example of us kind of deliberately withholding from doing all this exploration stuff in a song and being more like, no. Minimalism. We need minimalism. That's also something he was very, very good at. Like tracks like Cold Champagne, for example, one of his older work, like very minimal, very powerful. when we did Microorganism, that was all about like, let's do as like how minimal it has to be, you know, like just like how minimal is a microorganism. So with this track also, it was like, no, we're not going to do crazy sonic worlds. We're going to just have this modular riff. It's going to, and then it was a very difficult balance, I remember, from trying to produce it to a certain like big sounding maximum without it losing its kind of singular minimal focus. And this track has this cool middle for me, that it has this driving techno energy and arrangement, and if you hear it in a club, it's just great because it just fucking keeps going and it doesn't get boring because it's not trying to get your attention with all the stuff, it just has one thing.
I love the breakdown in it.
Yeah.
I love how it does continue and gives you a breather, but also it never stops in the breakdown, but then it still managed to still kind of like build anticipation and then release that, even though it never...
which is also very hard normally, that you don't really get a release if you build like that, then it's really hard to get a moment where it releases.
Yeah.
To find that timing, to find that kind of moment.
Yeah, and getting the sonics to sit
like
right.
the energy management there is super crucial, and I really like I don't play a lot of drum and bass songs that we made from back then, but this one I'm really like, no, but it does such a cool thing, I just play it. I also get to chill for like 2 minutes because I usually mix pretty quickly, and then with that one I was like, no, I want to play the second drop, so drink, what's up guys, you know, everybody's still here, and I don't know, man, like doing these Thai sets now and then and going to different kind of genres is like the way drum and bass DJs mix is so intense. What we're used to, it's really not.
Sorry, man.
No, but you also do it because that's the standard, and
it's also special to drum and bass, I think, as well. But when we talk about minimalism, I instantly thought, for some reason, of Jump Up and your influence on a lot of acts, and how, you know, more recently, and we've spoken
that is
about
so
this on the
funny,
radio,
like the irony in
that whole fusion. And in fact, at the last time I saw you was in Printworks, and I was chatting to Mike from Annex, and like how much of an influence you guys had, but how much of an influence they had on you guys at the time as well, really. And that whole, I think it was the DJ Hazard Fabric Live mix, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Had a huge
when
effect.
they weren't even Annex then. They were
Kenichi and 10
decimal bass.
Decimal bass, that's it.
Yeah. And we were like, what's that song?
And that one, that compilation actually has my first experience of a foghorn track on there, which is a track called Buzzards by Tyke.
Yeah. He is. He's the foghorn godfather.
Yeah. So we all would like that.
Strange title.
Yeah. Yeah, but the vocal says something about buzzards in the night.
Oh no, I mean foghorn godfather.
Oh yeah. So like there was a strange, it was almost like inverted magnetism. And we used to not be into Jump Up because it was like, this is making music silly, we love it, and it's we want to take it seriously, it's all futuristic and cool. These guys are making it haha, we don't like that. And then it hid in, like it was like, when I heard that Fabric Live mix, it was like Jump Up had hidden in this dark corner for years and had grown into this really cool, weirdly confident, minimal monster. And suddenly the magnetism flipped, and we were like, "Fuck yes, Jump Up! Let's make Diplodocus.
Friendly intentions. Yeah.
Well, I think that's great because that was the very start of people, and it's only really it's taken 10 years, but there was always this horrible kind of just divided camps within drum and bass, and people didn't think that, you know, it's like, oh, those tech lot don't care about us, or those Jump Up people, they don't care about the tech stuff. When in actual fact, as a journalist covering it all, everything was so similar anyway, and I could see all of these crossover points, and I talked to these people, but this was the start of the boundaries coming down to where we're at now, really, where there isn't that chin stroke in between either, and there isn't that kind of defiance of Jump Up. And I think it's
I used to really love running into those people though, like especially TC. I would have great conversations and such great energy with that guy, but then we didn't really play each other's music. We liked each other's music, but it's like, it doesn't fit my set. And I love that it's a bit easier now to.
But I think also,
but I also went back to like 2006 Jump Up, and now I really like that stuff, and I know
Well,
how
clips and
vivid.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah,
I listened
man.
to it all,
that
like-
was my favourite kind of sound, like working in Bristol at the time.
Yeah, so we hated it. We hated it. Like, it was a pet peeve almost that we were like so against it. That was part of our, you know,
Identity.
teenage identity, young tweens identity is like, what do you hate? You know, what are you against? It's very important for teenagers.
Certainly was for our generation, I think. You know, not to sound
Yeah.
like a boomer, there was very tribal because nobody could afford to collect lots of different styles of music. So you were either a drum and bass head or a house head or a metaler and things
Yeah.
like
No, but
that.
even
These
for
are always
subgenres.
cycles.
Well,
like,
but-
it might be a bit more mixed now, but it will subdivide again, and it will mix and it will subdivide. So always cycles, these things.
But the thing is, when it was like 2008, 9, and these things we were starting to get a name in drum and bass, we had been aware of these subgenres, and there was like, you know, divides between them. But we were doing electro and doing hip hop and doing like all this other stuff,
Yeah.
which was about that, and that was about a way bigger divide. So at the time, I don't think we were very focused on drum and bass subgenres, because we were like, you know, they were playing electro tracks in the middle of a drum and bass set and getting things
Yeah.
thrown at them.
Yeah.
So that divide was way more of a big deal, because
yeah.
we wanted to be an act that sort of became larger than one genre and was like doing, you know, multi-genre stuff from Split the Atom onwards. We've always done that.
Yeah.
And it's I was just thinking as you guys were talking, it was kind of like, because we're having a very drum and bass conversation right now. You know, all of the references are almost drum and bass.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Whereas we were really passionate, and kind of still are, about a lot of non-drum and bass music. Like Collider was meant to be the biggest single of Outer Edges. You know, that was like this is going to be like a big electro record.
Yeah.
You know,
It wasn't.
like we didn't have enough connection with that scene ultimately, you know, to really also play lots of those shows, but in our heads we obviously were working with way bigger divisions than drum and bass, and that also allowed us, I think, to then, when we get back to drum and bass, not give a shit about the boundaries, you know, because we saw much bigger boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember like finding.
What was thrown at you then?
Just all kinds of stuff.
Bottles.
There was one particular show where I played 2 hours in Poland, and I played one house tune, or one. It was Gutter Pump, I think, or something like.
Yeah.
Yeah, had to be. No, but
Becoming a meme.
yeah, I played one track, and people were starting to throw shit, and I literally stopped the music, and I was like, you know, I was just gonna play this one track, but oh, sure, I'll play drum and bass.
The spots are Noisia logos.
Ah,
Really?
Yeah, here.
Yeah.
Is that what mention of Gutter Pump does to you then? You quickly need to change the
No,
subject and
no,
talk
no.
about light fittings.
No, not at all. Can we talk?
no, sorry, but yeah.
Because my first interactions, I believe, with Walter were I went to meet Andy C. I was quite a young staff writer at the time, and I mentioned I
he's
was a
also
breaks
very
DJ.
influential on
Yeah,
the
Scott,
way I
his
started
manager,
DJing.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, because he was so quick, and I was like, I love that. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try to mix quicker and not play the second drop of a song, but just
Right.
try to
and
hit,
also not
hit
mix
people.
the whole intro into the
Yeah,
skip
skip.
to like
Yeah, yeah,
later.
yeah,
But
have
we,
the cue
yeah,
points and
he
things
did it
like
with
that.
vinyl back in the days. So then we started cutting songs to like a better thing. So they like, because on the early CDJs we were going around with CDs, so you didn't have cue points. So you really had to cut the song so you mix it quicker
Diplodocus was the first one, wasn't it?
with a
short-
32 intro. Yeah,
short intro.
yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, Scott, is Andy's manager, gave me a test press of Hustle Athletics.
Yeah.
Because I'd said, because I was a breaks DJ at the time, and he's like, oh, if you're into breaks, and I don't think he told me who it was, and then I emailed the email address. It might have even been one of you guys got back. It might have been pre-Walter becoming your manager. If it was Walter your manager by the time of Lecco,
maybe.
Ooh, around that time.
Yeah.
And that was
We were
you know,
definitely
he was-
doing a lot of stuff together, because it was the same period, that photo shoot, that we also did these Highlander Rapids photo shoots with
Yes.
the OCO. So that would have been, Walter would be closer. We were already recording ridiculous rap songs together.
I think like because we were covering all of the people who were on Closer, and I know we haven't spoken about the upbeats yet. So, and I think if we're going to, we need to include everybody who you've collaborated with now on the album.
We can forget people, but yeah,
no,
maybe not the upbeats.
No, you can't. You can never forget those guys.
Yeah, I think we were debating for a little bit as well to put Dead Limit on one of the albums. What did we want to put it
on Outrageous?
On Outrageous?
Yeah, because it came out in between.
Yeah. So, because I mean, that's obviously the biggest one we did, and still is like, you know, a highlight of the set now. Yeah, I think our history with them is just kind of, in my case, like very bromantic. And I think when we first met them, when we first wrote Sacrifice, the first thing we did together, it was in that same apartment with all the rooms, and we wrote it in Martijn's room. And it was called Sacrifice because they had a show in France and they canceled it so we could keep working on the song.
Oh, wow.
And they had just had releases on Bad Company's label, Bad Taste. They had like Werewolf and this other track,
Craven
Raven, like really sick tracks that we were super excited about, and they really loved what we were doing. So they were just like super excited. And as you know,
that was still when they were making tunes in a shed, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Back then,
yeah, and they're just like, their energy of, you know them. They're such lovely and positive guys, and they have such a like the whole sort of like tough guy drum and bass act is just completely not them, and so we got along really well when we wrote those songs. And then I think, but later down the line, when they had written their second album, because they'd written an album before they came out to us already that they self-released, but they did an album for Bad Taste. They did a few more albums after that, but I think like there was a bit of a hiatus, and then around, I don't know, I want to say like 2009, 10, we really started seeing them more again, and we started doing more music, because I think between Sacrifice and the next one, there's quite a bit of space, isn't there?
I don't.
Because for me, like
I think there was one more song.
Mudslide? Was that?
Yeah, Mudslide was me in New Zealand, but there was also very early on. Yeah. Well, so the whole sort of energy between us, I think, kind of was peaking around Dead Limit and before that, you know. And we just spent a lot of time together. Like, going to New Zealand is my favorite kind of holiday, and it's my favorite place apart from being at home. And yeah.
When Dead Limit came about, did you have an idea that it would become the phenomenon that it would become? Like, there aren't that many tunes within our kind of world that have their own dance.
That riff was in the studio, which was in our previous studio, from the moment that riff was there, I was like, that's going to be a big riff. I don't know where or when, but that's going to be a big riff.
There were a bunch of drops that didn't work.
The drop didn't work, but the breakdown was like, that's a thing. That has to be a thing.
Did you think this would be a thing?
No.
It's so TikTok. It's such a TikTok dance. Like, we put it there to kind of get a thing that even kids can do. But it's like, yeah. When that stuff started happening, we were like, ooh, this is kind of cringy, but also kind of cool that people are doing this.
Yeah.
And then at some point you're like, fuck it. Okay, I'll make them all do it. And then it became a thing. It was like, okay, this is how it works. Fine. And it's not like we're making people do something that they don't like.
No, it's like,
it's just a bit
going back
campy.
to it being a very drum and bassy conversation, it's an in-joke that we all know, like, the minute you hear that, you have to do that. If you don't, you're not really into the music, you don't get it. Like, it's almost like an involuntary reaction these days. Like, it just has to happen.
Like a wave.
Yeah.
and I guess the two tracks that are on the album with them both have an interesting place in the Noisia history, and also the sort of ending, because Shibuya Pet Store was obviously written mostly in Japan, which with their No Sleep Till Japan project, which was one of the coolest things I've ever done. And I think, like, I'm still really grateful that they set it all up, because they organized all of it themselves.
Yeah,
and
they raised the money to do it.
All of the So it was very kind of rickety operation, but it all worked really well, mostly on the fact that they were just really nice guys, you know? Like, it just sort of, I don't know, it was fucking incredible. So, and that song also was one of the moments in those years, one of the few moments where while we were in the studio with them, even though it was one day, we had some really cool chemistry there.
Oh, but that day is also
happened.
For me, I recorded a bunch of stuff that I used a lot later in Sleeping Beauty Dreams, because there was this old SH201 or 101 and this old Roland
delay.
Space Echo. And I hadn't really used vintage stuff before. I had my modular already, but that's where I'm like, oh my God, yeah. Oh, I know what I want now, and I know why people go after tape stuff.
Wow, so that was a real penny
I
dropping
really
kind of
started like buying a lot of
for
stuff.
you. Wow.
Yeah, he was really hypnotized.
Yeah. In that corner.
Yeah, on my headphones, and they were on the thing, and I was just like on headphones on my laptop with the thing recording out of this thing. Yeah. It was really inspiring, and like that thing being there, and it was so crusty and dusty. It was fucked up, and they were like, these studio assistants really said like, oh no, you don't want to use that. I was like,
Yes,
I'll try.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it doesn't sound right. I think it sounds great. Like the tape was super old and crusty and wobbly, and now that has become like super accessible, that sound, like there's plugins for it, but back then it was like, whoa, this is a really cool thing. I haven't heard this before.
Cool, and that sowed all kinds of seeds then for what you're doing, you know, kind of now really then, or what you have done is.
Oh, I'm doing so much different stuff. That was an episode where, and that album, Sleeping Beauty Dreams, was really like, really went far with that, but then now I'd say like, yeah, no, I'm going completely somewhere else.
Well, you went on a really long reverb and delay thing.
Yeah.
Like really huge, like that was like a hole you fell into, and I don't think you've come out. Or maybe you have now with more of the club music.
Yeah.
Like with the club stuff being very dry and
yeah, but
dead.
even that first EP that I put on my label is still that, and the piano has a lot of it as well, the piano thing.
And so this was one day in a studio, because they
Couple hours.
They had to leave again already. But Martijn wrote 2 riffs, one for Shibuya Pet Store and one for the track Flare that isn't on the album, but is on.
No. Yeah, it's on their project.
On their project.
Right.
And so we also recorded lots of stuff with recorders as we were walking around Tokyo and stuff. So the whole intro is all made out of those sounds, and so just having that as like what they gave us, basically. They gave us that experience, and so they gave us that track. It was really cool to have that on the album. And then Halcyon actually became a track that, as we were going through the process of breaking up, this was kind of the track that's told us, as we were working on it, it's going to be okay. Because it has this kind of like positivity.
But it was a really angry song.
It wasn't angry.
I
It
know,
was
and
called
it's a really angry
it starts
song.
off angry. It's the positivity is kind of grows slowly throughout it. Really, it's always very subtle.
It starts very jazzy, and then it goes into this bass thing. And this bass thing used to be all it was, and I wasn't so into that. And I really started messing with it because there's also a rhythm in it, so I put stabs on it. And then Nick was like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting, like this housey kind of old school Matrix kind of sound. And then we started writing an intro to it. It's like, it's kind of weird, but it kind of works. It's a complete departure from what it was. It was like an angry, ballsy.
Death Rocks.
Yeah.
Death Rocks.
Death Rocks, and it was really noisy, and the upbeats being like, that was it. And then we still use that.
Yeah, but that was already, I think it was already from a session later after because that started in Japan as well. Then Dylan had come over a few times to Groningen, and I think we worked on it then, and we already had tried to subdue it, and that sort of, like that slinky filtered bass line was already there. And then when you came into the picture with that session, that was when we started making it housey all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So then it went housey, then it went jazzy. When we did the intro chords, they were like, oh, that works.
Didn't the first version have a lot of rides and stuff?
Yeah. It was like full-on kind of Bad Company, because like Upbeats and us are huge Bad Company fans. So, yeah, and then so it became this kind of positive, like light or silver lining kind of track for us, and it was very welcome to be able to channel that feeling while we were going through some pretty tough times. Yeah. And so the outro also has a very kind of positive, kind of like whimsical beat.
Did we also already decide to stop that?
I think we were in the process of like realizing that we were probably not going to make it.
I remember that one of maybe the titles was like Indian Summer, because it felt like an after processing of something.
Well, isn't that what Halcyon is?
Halcyon Days, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it is like, I think it's because we were already.
Had you actually spoken it, or was it just a feeling, a shared feeling, but it hadn't actually been kind of spoken about at the time?
We'd definitely been talking about it by then.
Oh, right. Which one of you was the first to speak of actually going like, right, to admit, hang on, this isn't gonna, we need to split, really? Which one of you was the first? Or was it an observation made by somebody else, like Walter or something like that?
Maybe, or maybe if it was one of us, it was probably me.
It was you and Walter.
And I think, because we'd been just actively looking for a way forward, and then at some point I just couldn't think of anything and couldn't see it. Like, I think I just had a realization or something, or maybe I didn't and maybe Walter mentioned it or something, but it just felt so much, if suddenly it was like, wait a minute, what if we just don't do it? What if we don't, what if we just stop looking for a way to keep going, if it's so hard to find common ground creatively?
I think it was Walter who realized that he really didn't like his life having to manage an act that had been for years in a conflict, basically almost like an artistic conflict, like where are we taking the sound, which means what is our future also financially, like that stuff. Because if we go more deep and underground, like inevitably it will be smaller unless we become underground legends, blah, 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 blah. If we go bigger, then and more vocals and more radio, then we get more plays. But like no one, like we couldn't make the choice, and Walter was just there like, then I can't do anything. Like I want to think ahead, bring you guys where your momentum is pointing, and your momentum is pointing nowhere right now. It's just inside.
Right.
Yeah, we just ground to a halt, and he was always feeding off our energy of like what we were excited about, and we couldn't give him anything. It was constantly like, well, we don't, we're kind of, no, you can't manage that.
Yeah. So he said, guys, and he brought in counseling.
He brought in counseling?
Yes.
Wow.
Which was great. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was actually amazing for a lot of other reasons, actually. It was really great to know more. It really taught us more about ourselves.
Yeah.
Really great.
Yeah. But in those talks, it really quickly kind of crystallized like, this is probably the best option for everybody, because we can just, we'll keep the studios, we'll keep seeing each other, we keep the Hat on the Rappers, we keep all the stuff we like, and we just stop doing the thing that is causing us so much fucking sleepless nights. It was terrible. At some point, not the whole way, but at some point it got to like, it was really tough. And then the relief, I remember the summer I was in Croatia, like taking notes in my notebook, being like, yeah, so if we're gonna do this, because we'd given ourselves a summer to play some shows, think it through. We decided like, hey, this is probably the best option. Let's meet back in September, see if we still all support the thing. And I remember like being on a beach in Croatia and like taking notes, just writing out my thoughts so that I could understand and feel it better.
Yeah.
Let's quickly then include comments and thoughts on Posei and Matthews, because we've covered everybody.
Halogenics.
We spoke about Lawrence. We picked up Lawrence.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's Emil Tobin.
There's so much. Yeah, there's so much to talk. So much history and so many things to say. I mean, but obviously Frank Posei we've known for a very long time, and he's been working for Noisia Radio, Vision Radio.
It's been like a protege of yours in a way.
Yeah.
Really, and just flourishes now in his own universe, his own musical universe with his own energy.
Yeah. Yeah, so like, and we wanted to add the track title Simplon to it to, kind of celebrate the place Simplon, where we did Machtig parties, and there was this kind of like feeling when we did drum and bass parties there. Those sorts of tracks kind of like were kind of a sound there, I think. I mean, this track on its own also sounds like something completely different, but like the spirit is kind of in there.
And he played his first show there.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, simple.
And I dislocated my shoulder there.
Yeah, many crazy nights. Many of our friends who played there. Many of the people that are on the album and aren't on the album all played there.
A real key place for Noisia.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. Matthews.
Well, obviously we have history with him from like putting out Manifest and like getting excited about his sound, and
It's also like it was also really a Noisia Radio find. Like we found him early. What was it? It was I think Noi first and then Critical, and we supported him very early because we very early heard like this is different, this is special. Mythos was one of the first ones that I started playing as well. But even before then, we were already playing his songs on the radio, and then I mean that is maybe 10 years ago. I don't know.
I remember one of the first times that I heard a track being played, like there was a point in, I don't know, 2013, 12, 10, I don't know when it was, but we were quite dominant with our sound, and also our tracks were quite a bit louder than everybody else, like than a lot of people. So then there suddenly was this track by Melkweg, Upbeats, and was it Inside Info or was it Edward? It was on Virus. Had that Path of the Virus vocal. What's that one called again? Anyway, it was fucking loud, and so somebody else played it. Was like, holy shit, this is really powerful. This has got the kind of power that we usually have in our tracks.
Yeah.
I need to step up my game. Like one of the first moments where I personally felt as a producer, like, okay, this dude is like on a level that is making me want to become better, you know.
First time was also worthy of a shout out. Pendulum, like
Yes.
Paul and Gaz and Rob have been obviously very influential on us. Like they're friends. We were also competitors. That was a really fruitful time when it was us versus Pendulum versus Chase and Status, like with our little like different approaches and niches. But it was a very like lively time, I think, for drum and bass, because like people were taking things directly, but all on such a high level. Also sub-focus in the same time.
Yeah, and to make another connection there, and shout out Link to Joe and Obi at the time.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
were doing
Are we
all
all
of
on the
our
same-
managements.
Right.
So we were co-managed by Joe and Walter for a period of time, and so all of these other guys were also managed by Joe.
Right.
And then
Wow.
Obi was doing our bookings, and then so that's actually when we really broke the UK. Is when Obi sent
we
us
started
through the
grinding.
whole-
We started grinding for very low money, like much less than we were used to. But he
Yeah.
believed in the mission, and he promised us
Yeah.
do the
You
rounds a
play
couple
someday.
times.
shows every weekend and just hustle it.
Yeah,
basically,
do
and
the
you'll
rounds a
break it.
couple times, then you're big in England, and then I promise you, where you're getting this now, it'll double because you did the England thing, and we trusted him, and he proved himself right.
And at the time when Pendulum had just done Hold Your Color, like that ass kicking they gave drum and bass is like, I still think is unparalleled. And I think like we have obviously put out way more music after that. We've been a little bit more prolific and present in the drum and bass scene in terms of like new music and all that stuff. But like they were, I didn't like a lot of the stuff, like the sort of cheesier jump uppier stuff that they did. I really didn't like, but the production quality was so high, and the level of like ideas and energy put into the music and the vision was just like, the way they were kicking drum and bass's ass was like making us look like we were just fiddling around in the margins, like back then. And it's slowly like, you know, in terms of production level and like in terms of presence, like obviously things changed maybe a little bit throughout the years, but it's so crazy that they can still command such a presence in drum and bass with mainly, you know, albums from, how old are those albums? They're still like great ideas. They still resonate.
And on that note,
On that note, I did have a game planned, but I think you need to, have you got lunch, have you got dinner, then do you need to be somewhere? So I'm going to do, I might not do all of the questions.
let's do some.
Let's do some of the questions.
We shouted
The
some
game-
people out.
Yeah.
I have to do one more at least.
Yeah,
Well,
we probably forgot people too. Like this is not.
I mean, our whole crew of over the years.
Yeah,
Francesco, our booking agent.
Kevin.
Thomas, who used to go on the road with us. Eric, who used to work with us. Farad, who is like our video guy and a friend. Oh man, no! Now I started this. No, I just wanted to shout out like the Foreign Beggars crew.
Yes, yes.
That's what I wanted to do, and I shouldn't do names because then I'm gonna forget everyone else, which will be like terrible.
If
I mean, that's a
want,
whole
when
other chapter
Martijn
that we haven't
leaves, you
even
can
touched on.
rattle off names.
No, but we also have to go. It's not just him.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no, Foreign Beggars.
Yeah, big up.
Yeah, Ibo,
And
Pavan,
rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Matt.
Now let's play a little game. A game I like to call Closer. What is closer to the Earth, Mars or Venus?
Your anus.
Oh, no ties. No ties. I'm going to cut a load of these out because I'm sensing that kind of time is tight. But I'm going to do this one and one more.
All right.
What's closer to the Earth?
Oh,
Yeah, I'm asking you a question. This is a proper question. Which one?
What's-
Which
I'd say
planet?
Mars.
What's closer to the Earth?
And obviously there are points where they're different. There's different distances, but there's one is consistently closer than the other.
You're still asking question number one.
Yeah, oh yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, 'cause I haven't
Venus
had
is
answer
farther
number
away
one.
than Mars. Mars is closer. Mars is closer than Venus.
Venus is closer.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
right
No,
now. Right now.
No, always.
always, always. Okay, right. This is a really good one. The invention of the light bulb or the invention of the telephone. Which one is closer to this very day?
Oh, telephone.
What is the purpose of these questions?
It's closer. It's closer. There's no. It's me being tenuous.
Completely
It's a
random.
game. It's a game. It's technology.
No, you just don't like that you don't know the answer.
There's literally 3 years in it. There's 3 years in it.
Well, then we won't know.
You won't know. Give a guess. Are you going to go
I
with
already
telephone?
guessed. Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
go.
wrong. It's the light bulb. It's the light bulb. But you could go into it because this is the light bulb and not a light system, which was actually invented many years before. So I'm figuring that this game isn't going quite. It hasn't got the momentum.
One light bulb, you mean?
Yeah.
Was invented. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's thematical for our cover of Closer. Did you think about it?
I
Is that
did.
the reason why?
I definitely did. I definitely did. So here we go now. Right. Okay. There are 89,062 Daves in America, according to American statistics. But which one of your songs has got the closest amount of Spotify streams? Is it Mixing Room or The Order? And no looking at your phone, Martijn.
18 now? There's only
There are
18.
89,062 Daves,
That's-
according
Sounds
to...
low. I thought there would be more.
We're underground. Daves are
Right.
underground these days in
And these- are
America.
these Daves
These
in
are
the-
Daves and not Davids.
Right, this is Passport Dave.
Yeah.
You're saying
Passport Day.
mixing room and
Mixing Room or The Order?
they're
Which
both
one?
from the DMC soundtrack, aren't they?
Yeah.
Mixing room.
Hang on, I need to look at this. No, you're wrong. But on that note... I did get it made. We got it made today. My wife didn't.
I asked Dave today, show us the shirt. He's like, no, it didn't show in time. It just arrived today.
And it didn't. This was actually made. Feet went and picked it up earlier on. We actually made it today in Amsterdam.
Sick.
Did you just ask those questions so you could say that we were wrong 3 times in a row? So you could tell us no?
No, but there we go. No Daves aside, what else can the world know? Really, I don't know when this interview is going to go out or anything. I mean, it's more about now the legacy which exists in Vision, which exists in all of the people that you've influenced and inspired over the years. But there is a huge question mark now, really, over kind of what happens next and what can we say there, really.
I don't know.
Like to Noisia. I mean, we're still doing shows together until August, and we have a bunch of
But
things
that's like
still planned
3 or 4 or something, or 7.
for you.
Lowlands is the final one, isn't it? Lowlands
Yes.
is really special.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons why I think we chose April 1st to announce the album is because of this constant fucking delaying because of COVID of these shows. So it was becoming such a joke that we were stopping, that we thought we'd make it an actual joke, but then not a joke. Yeah. I think that's because if there hadn't been any COVID and delays, we wouldn't have announced our last album on the 1st of April.
It was actually Veep that thought of making it that simple. Like just tweeting in text a third and final album. That was her idea. Because we were talking about like, what do we say? We're gonna do a third and final album, blah blah blah. We had this whole thing, and she was like, a third and final album. She just sent it. And I was like, send it like that. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. No emojis.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So big up Veep.
And yeah, we're gonna obviously keep doing Vision Radio and keep doing Vision, and
I've still got a job.
and yeah, just doing stuff, pretty much doing all the stuff that we are doing and we're doing, except for not doing the act Noisia.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Brilliant. I think it's a great way to sign out as well. Like this year, especially, you know, with the remix albums as well, and the album, there's. You haven't kind of faded away with this farewell, even though COVID has tried to push it and extended it and thrown all of these circumstances in. You've shone light on the situation and really kind of celebrated everything that you've done for the last 22 years.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, thank you guys. On behalf of all Noisia fans and fans of drum and bass and everything, thank you guys.
Okay.
Awesome.
Bam.
Mic drop.